Daniel Moore stepped into Riverside Coffee with one objective: sit for 30 minutes, then leave. Another blind date arranged by his mother, identical to dozens before. The afternoon sun streamed through the tall windows, casting long shadows across the worn wooden floor. He'd chosen a table in the back, away from the main foot traffic, where he could have a clear view of the entrance. But when he saw the woman rising from the table near the window, Daniel froze. She was beautiful, her face calm and composed, and visibly pregnant, at least 7 months along. The baby bump couldn't be hidden beneath her loose-knit sweater. "Are you Daniel?" she asked, her voice steady. "I'm Lily." "Your date." In that single moment, Daniel clearly understood this appointment would change more than he'd imagined. This wasn't going to be like the other 16 blind dates. This was something entirely different. Daniel Moore was 34 and had been a single father for 3 years. His divorce from Rachel had been finalized when their daughter Emma was only 2. The split wasn't dramatic, no shouting, no broken dishes, just a quiet dissolution of 2 people who had built a life on assumptions rather than understanding. Rachel had moved to Portland for work, visiting Emma once a month. Daniel didn't resent her for it. Sometimes survival meant distance. What he did resent were the blind dates. His mother, Patricia, had made it her mission to find him a wife. Not a partner, a wife. Someone who could give Emma a proper mother and make the family whole again. Every Sunday, dinner became an interrogation. Daniel had stopped fighting it 6 months ago. It was easier to show up, sit through an awkward hour, and report back that there was no connection. He'd been to 16 blind dates in the past year. Coffee shops, mostly. The pattern was always the same. The woman would arrive with expectations, carefully applied makeup, rehearsed conversation starters. He would sit, smile politely, ask about her work. She would mention Emma and pause, waiting for him to explain. He would provide the necessary information in a tone that discouraged follow-up. Then he would go home, put Emma to bed, and feel the weight of his loneliness settle back into place. Daniel wasn't looking for love. He wasn't sure he believed in it anymore. What he wanted was peace. Time with his daughter, a life free from constant pressure to perform happiness for other people's comfort. So, when his mother had called 3 days ago, insisting he meet a lovely young woman from church, Daniel had agreed with weary resignation. He'd show up. He'd be polite. He'd leave. He hadn't expected the baby bump. Standing in Riverside Coffee, watching Lily smooth her hands over her pregnant belly in what looked like an unconscious gesture of protection, Daniel felt something shift. Not attraction. Not romance. Recognition. She looked like someone who had already been judged and found wanting. Someone who had shown up anyway. Lily Patterson was 29 and had stopped explaining herself 3 months ago. The pregnancy had been a surprise. The relationship ending had not been. Marcus had been charming until the test came back positive. Then he'd been absent. First emotionally, then physically. He'd moved out 2 weeks after she told him, leaving behind a check for $3,000 and a note that said he wasn't ready. Lily had cashed the check and thrown away the note. Her family's reaction had been worse. Her father, a deacon at Riverside Baptist Church, had called her pregnancy a consequence of sin. Her mother had cried not for Lily's situation, but for what the neighbors would think. Her younger sister had stopped inviting her to events. The irony was that Lily had been the good daughter. College, respectable job as a dental hygienist, church every Sunday. She'd done everything right, and one mistake had erased all of it. When her mother mentioned the blind date, Lily had laughed. "You want me to go on a date? Like this?" She gestured to her stomach. "Daniel is a single father," her mother had said. "He'll understand, and Patricia says he's very responsible." Lily had understood then. This wasn't about her happiness. This was about redemption through marriage, a way to make her respectable again. She'd almost said no. But 7 months pregnant and living alone with savings that wouldn't last past maternity leave, Lily had felt something crack inside her. Not hope. Hope would have been too dangerous. But desperate curiosity. Maybe this Daniel person would be kind. Maybe he'd listen. Maybe for 30 minutes she could sit across from someone who wouldn't look at her with disappointment. So she'd agreed. She'd arrived 10 minutes early and chosen a table near the window. And when she saw Daniel walk through the door, tall, dark-haired, with the careful posture of someone carrying invisible weight, she knew immediately what would happen. He would look at her belly. His expression would go carefully neutral. He would sit down out of politeness. Then he would make an excuse and leave. She'd seen that look before. On Marcus's face, on her father's face, on strangers' faces in grocery stores. Lily had taught herself not to flinch from that look anymore. So when Daniel froze in the doorway, she simply stood up and said his name. Might as well get it over with. The first 5 minutes were excruciating. Daniel sat down because leaving immediately would have been cruel. Lily stayed seated because standing up required effort. Coffee? Daniel asked. Decaf tea. I'll get it. No, He stood too quickly. Chamomile, if they have it. Daniel walked to the counter with focused determination. Lily watched him go and felt the familiar weight of humiliation. This had been a mistake. When he returned with her tea and black coffee for himself, he sat and wrapped both hands around his cup. So, he said. So, Lily repeated. Silence stretched between them. My mother arranged this, Daniel finally said. Mine too, Lily said. They looked at each other, and something close to understanding passed between them. You don't want to be here, Lily said. It's not personal. I know. Lily wrapped her hands around her mug. You expected someone different. I didn't expect anyone. I stopped expecting things from these dates 6 months ago. How many have there been? 16? 17, counting today. Lily's eyebrows rose. Your mother is persistent. She's terrified I'll raise Emma alone. My daughter. She's 5. The information landed between them. Daniel had a daughter. He was already a parent. How long have you been divorced? Lily asked. 3 years. You? Not married, Lily said. The father left when I was 2 months along. Daniel's grip on his cup tightened, but his expression didn't change. I'm sorry. Don't be. It clarified things. Another silence. Different this time. Less awkward, more evaluative. You didn't know, Daniel said, about the pregnancy. When you agreed to this, I did know, Lily corrected. My mother told me you were a single father. She thought it would make you more understanding. Understanding of what? Lily gestured to her stomach. This. The fact that I'm, as my father puts it, damaged goods. Daniel flinched. He said that, among other things. He stopped himself. It's fine. I'm used to it. You shouldn't have to be. Lily looked down at her tea, blinking against sudden heat in her eyes. Well, she said. You're free to go. Daniel didn't move. What did you sign up for? The question surprised her. I don't know. Maybe 30 minutes where someone didn't look at me like I was a cautionary tale. Is that what I'm doing? Not yet. But you will. Daniel was quiet. Then he said, My ex-wife left because I was too rigid, too focused on doing things the right way. She said, I cared more about appearances than happiness. Did you? Probably. I thought if I followed the rules, everything would work out. But the rules don't account for people being complicated. Lily found herself nodding. I followed the rules too. Went to church, saved myself for someone I loved. Turns out rules don't protect you from bad choices, or from people who judge you for being human, Daniel added. Their eyes met, and this time Lily saw not pity or judgment, just recognition. They were both people who had tried to do everything right and ended up in the wreckage anyway. 15 minutes into the date, something strange happened. They started talking. Real conversation. the kind that happened when two people stopped performing and started being honest. Daniel told her about Emma, how she'd started kindergarten and cried every morning for 2 weeks, how she loved dinosaurs but was terrified of butterflies, how she asked about her mother but didn't seem sad about the absence, which somehow made Daniel sadder. "I don't want her to think this is normal," he said. "But I also don't want to lie and say everything's fine." "What do you tell her?" Lily asked. "That her mom loves her but needed to live somewhere else to be happy. That none of it is Emma's fault." He paused. "I'm not sure she believes me. Kids know more than we think," Lily said. Lily talked about her parents, how her father believed in tough love, which meant brutal honesty about her failures and silence about everything else. "Do they know about today? My mother set it up. She's hoping you'll marry me and give the baby a last name before I start showing in church." Daniel's jaw tightened. "You're already showing. I stopped going to church 2 months ago. Couldn't stomach the looks. There was this woman, Mrs. Henderson. She taught my Sunday school class. She saw me at the grocery store and actually crossed to the other aisle to avoid me." They sat with that for a moment. "I'm scared," Lily said suddenly, "that I won't be enough. That I'll mess this up. That my kid will grow up feeling like there's something to be ashamed of." "You won't," Daniel said. "You don't know that." "No. But I know what it looks like when someone cares about getting it right. You're already thinking about your child's emotional well-being. That's more than a lot of parents do. Do you ever feel like you're failing, Emma?" "Every single day. But you keep trying. What else can I do?" Lily nodded. There was no opting out of parenthood. No matter how scared, how unprepared, how alone, you just kept trying. "The father," Daniel said carefully. "Does he want to be involved?" "No. He signed away his rights 2 months ago. His loss. I mean it. Anyone who walks away from their child is a coward." The words were harsh, but Lily found them comforting. She'd spent so long making excuses for Marcus that hearing someone call it cowardice felt like permission to be angry. "I am angry," she admitted. "At him for leaving. At my parents for making me feel like this is my fault. At myself for believing I deserved better." "You do deserve better. You don't know me. I know enough. You showed up today even though you knew how it would look. That takes guts. Or desperation. Maybe both. Desperation doesn't cancel out courage." Lily checked her phone. They'd been talking for 40 minutes. "You can go," she said quietly. Daniel signaled the server for another round of drinks. The coffee shop had been relatively empty when they arrived, but as the afternoon wore on, Riverside Coffee filled with the usual Saturday crowd. College students with laptops, young couples holding hands, groups of friends laughing over shared pastries, and with the crowd came the looks. Lily noticed them first. She'd developed a sixth sense for judgment over the past few months. The way eyes would land on her belly, flick to her left hand, then away. The quick calculations people made pregnant, no ring, sitting with a man who clearly wasn't the father. She felt the familiar heat of shame creeping up her neck. Daniel was talking about a project at work. Something about infrastructure development, when Lily's attention snagged on 2 women sitting at the table behind him, both in their 50s, well-dressed, with the kind of haircuts that required weekly salon appointments. They weren't trying to be subtle. "Poor thing," one of them said, voice pitched just loud enough to carry. "Desperate enough to show up like that." "I'd die of embarrassment," the other replied. "What kind of man would even consider? Probably looking for someone to handle the consequences of her mistakes." Lily's hands tightened around her mug. She tried to focus on Daniel, on what he was saying about soil compaction and drainage systems, but the words behind her kept cutting through. "You can always tell," the first woman continued. "Girls like that. No self-respect, no planning, just expecting men to fix their problems, and he's actually sitting there listening to her. Unbelievable." Daniel had stopped talking. Lily realized he'd noticed her expression. "What's wrong?" he asked. "Nothing." She tried to smile. "Just tired." but Daniel's eyes had shifted past her shoulder. His jaw tightened in that way she was starting to recognize the look of someone swallowing anger. He'd heard them. "Ignore it," Lily said quietly. "Ignore what?" "The talking. The looks. I'm used to it. You shouldn't be." "Well, I am." Lily started to gather her purse. "Maybe we should—" The baby kicked. Hard. Hard enough that Lily gasped and pressed her hand to her side. "Are you okay?" Daniel leaned forward, concerned. "Fine. The baby just another kick. Has opinions about my posture." Behind her, one of the women laughed. "Probably kicking because even it knows this is a disaster." That was it. Lily stood up, or tried to. Her size made quick movements difficult, and she had to brace herself against the table. Her face burned. Her vision blurred with tears she refused to let fall. "I need to go," she said. "Lily, please. I just need to go." She didn't wait for Daniel's response. She grabbed her purse and walked toward the door as quickly as her body would allow, which wasn't very quick at all. Each step felt like a performance of her own humiliation. She could feel eyes on her from every corner of the coffee shop. The pregnant girl running away. The cautionary tale in motion. Lily made it to the parking lot before the tears came. She stood next to her car, keys in hand, trying to unlock the door while her vision swam. The keys slipped from her fingers and hit the pavement. She stared at them, unable to bend down to retrieve them without a complicated series of movements that would make her feel even more ridiculous. This was her life now. Crying in parking lots because strangers said cruel things. Unable to pick up her own keys because her body no longer belonged entirely to her. Alone in every way that mattered. She pressed her forehead against the car window and let herself cry. Not the pretty crying of movies, this was the ugly kind. Gasping sobs that hurt her ribs and made her nose run. The kind of crying that came from months of holding it together. She cried for Marcus, who had promised to love her, and left instead. She cried for her parents, who had made her feel like a burden rather than a daughter. She cried for herself, for the life she'd imagined that would never exist now. And she cried for the baby, who would be born into a world that had already decided to judge them both. "I'm sorry," she whispered, hands on her stomach. "I'm so sorry you're stuck with me." The baby kicked again, gentler this time. Like a response, Lily almost laughed. Even her unborn child was trying to comfort her. She was pathetic. She needed to pull herself together, drive home, make dinner, finish the baby's room, do the 1,000 things that still needed doing before this child arrived, and her life became even more complicated. She bent down carefully, awkwardly, to retrieve her keys. "Lily." She jerked upright to find Daniel standing 3 feet away, slightly out of breath. "I'm fine," she said automatically. "You don't need to." "I know I don't need to." His voice was quiet. "Can we talk?" "There's nothing to talk about. I'm used to it." "Really? You keep saying that." "Because it's true. That doesn't make it okay." Lily wiped her face with the back of her hand. "What do you want me to say, Daniel? That it hurts?" "It does." "That I hate it?" "I do. But hating it doesn't change anything. People look at me and see exactly what those women saw, a stupid girl who made a mistake. That's not what I see." "Then you're not looking hard enough." Daniel stepped closer. "I see someone who showed up today even though she knew people would judge her. Someone who's scared but doing it anyway. Someone who's been abandoned by the people who should have protected her but is still trying to protect her child." "Stop," Lily whispered. "I see someone brave. I'm not brave. I'm desperate. There's a difference." "No," Daniel said. "There really isn't." Lily shook her head. "You should go back inside. Finish your coffee. Forget this happened." "I don't want to forget this happened." "Why not? What's the point?" "We'll go our separate ways. Everything goes back to normal." "Is that what you want?" Lily looked at him, really looked. At the concern in his eyes, the anger still simmering beneath his careful composure. The way he'd followed her into the parking lot instead of letting her leave. "What I want doesn't matter," she said. "It matters to me." The words hung between them. "Why?" Lily asked. "Why do you care?" "You don't know me. I know what it's like to feel alone in a room full of people," Daniel said. "I know what it's like to be judged for circumstances you can't control. And I know what it's like to wish someone had stood up for you." Lily felt fresh tears sliding down her cheeks. "Daniel, let me do this," he said. "Please." "Do what?" "Something that matters." Daniel stood in the parking lot of Riverside Coffee and felt something he hadn't felt in 3 years. Certainty. Not about the future, not about where this was going or what it meant, but about what needed to happen next. He thought about Emma, about the day she'd come home from kindergarten crying because a boy had called her dad a weekend parent, about how Daniel had wanted to march into that school and demand an apology, but hadn't, because you couldn't protect your child from every cruelty. But this he could do something about. He thought about Rachel, about all the times she'd needed him to defend her, to stand up for their relationship, and he'd stayed silent because it wasn't appropriate or professional, or because he was worried about what people would think. He thought about himself, about every time he'd sat through an uncomfortable dinner, an awkward date, a humiliating family gathering, and said nothing because making waves was harder than enduring it. He was tired of enduring. Tired of watching people get hurt while he stayed comfortable and silent. "Come back inside with me," he said to Lily. "What?" "No. I'm going home. In a minute." "Just come back inside." "Daniel, I can't." "You can." He held out his hand. "Trust me, please." Lily stared at his outstretched hand like it might disappear. "Why are you doing this?" "Because someone should have done it for you already. Because I'm tired of watching people get hurt and doing nothing. Because..." He paused. "Because you deserve to walk into a room without feeling ashamed." "I'm not ashamed," Lily said, but her voice shook. "I know. That's why this matters." She looked at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she placed her hand in his. Her fingers were cold. Daniel wrapped his hand around them and felt her trembling. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "Fix this." "You can't fix people being cruel." "No. But I can make sure they know I see them." They walked back toward Riverside Coffee together. Daniel could feel Lily hesitating with each step, could sense her wanting to pull away and run. He kept his grip firm but gentle. "You don't have to do this," she whispered as they reached the door. "I know. It won't change anything. Maybe not. But I need to say it anyway." Daniel pulled open the door to the coffee shop and guided Lily inside. The 2 women who had been talking were still at their table, still sipping their drinks, still wearing the satisfied expressions of people who believed they had the right to judge. Daniel walked straight to their table. The coffee shop wasn't silent before Daniel spoke. There was the hiss of the espresso machine, the murmur of conversation, the scrape of chairs against floors. But when he stopped at the table where the 2 women sat, the noise began to fade. People sensed a confrontation coming. "Excuse me," Daniel said. His voice was calm, polite even, but there was steel underneath it. The 2 women looked up, startled. "Can we help you?" the one with the pearl necklace asked. "I heard what you said about my wife." The words landed like stones in water. Lily's hand tightened in his. He felt her try to pull away, but he held on. "Your wife?" The second woman's eyes darted to Lily, to her stomach, back to Daniel. "I think you're confused. We were having a private conversation, in a public space," Daniel said, "about the woman I love, so I'm making a public response." The first woman's face flushed. "We didn't mean..." "Yes, you did." Daniel's voice never rose, but it filled the space anyway. "You meant exactly what you said. You looked at my wife, pregnant with our child, and decided she was desperate, that she was using me, that she was someone to be pitied and judged." By now, the entire coffee shop had gone quiet. Every conversation had stopped. Every eye was on them. Lily tugged at his hand. Daniel, please. You see this woman? Daniel continued, still looking at the two women but speaking loud enough for everyone to hear. She's the bravest person I know. She works full-time while carrying our baby. She handles morning sickness and back pain and swollen feet without complaint. She's preparing to bring a life into this world, which is the most terrifying and incredible thing a person can do. We didn't know. The pearl necklace woman started. You didn't ask. Daniel cut her off. You saw a pregnant woman without a ring and decided you knew her story. You decided you had the right to judge her, to make her feel small and ashamed for existing in your space. That's not the second woman tried. Let me finish. Daniel's jaw was tight. My wife doesn't wear her ring because her fingers are swollen from the pregnancy. We've been together for 2 years. We're married. This baby, he placed his free hand on Lily's stomach, feeling the baby move beneath his palm, is wanted, planned, loved. Lily made a small sound beside him. He glanced down to see tears streaming down her face, but she wasn't trying to leave anymore. But you know what? Daniel continued. Even if none of that were true, even if she were exactly what you assumed she was, a single woman, pregnant and alone, she would still deserve your respect. She would still deserve to sit in a coffee shop without being mocked. She would still be a human being worthy of basic decency. The coffee shop was absolutely silent now. My wife is not desperate, Daniel said, his voice quieter but no less firm. She's not a cautionary tale. She's not damaged goods. She's a woman growing a human being inside her body, while people like you make her feel like she should apologize for existing. He looked around the coffee shop then, making eye contact with the other customers who had been watching, and everyone else who heard what these women said and said nothing, who watched my wife's face crumple and decided it wasn't your problem. You're just as guilty. A young man in a corner booth looked down at his laptop. A couple by the window suddenly found their phones fascinating. Daniel turned back to the two women. I hope you never have a daughter who needs someone to defend her, because based on today, I don't think you'd know how. He squeezed Lily's hand. We're leaving now. Together. Daniel guided Lily toward the door. The crowd parted for them like water. As they stepped outside, Lily pulled her hand from his and stopped walking. She was crying fully now, her shoulders shaking. I'm sorry, Daniel said immediately. I shouldn't have. That was the kindest thing anyone has ever done for me, Lily interrupted. She looked up at him, her face wet with tears but her eyes clear. This isn't your baby. You don't have to. I know, Daniel said. But they don't need to know that, because you deserve to walk out of there with your head up. And the truth is complicated. What I said was simpler. You called me your wife. I did. You said you loved me. I said a lot of things. Lily shook her head slowly. You're a good man, Daniel Moore. I'm really not. I just did what should have been done months ago by your family, your friends, everyone who claims to care about you. Still, Lily wiped her eyes. Thank you. They stood in the afternoon sun, the sounds of the city humming around them. What happens now? Lily asked quietly. I don't know, Daniel admitted. I should probably go home. Emma's with my mother, and I need to pick her up before dinner. Right, of course. Neither of them moved. I meant what I said in there, Daniel finally spoke. Not the married part. I heard you. Good. Lily looked down at her hands, then back up at him. Would you want to get coffee again sometime? Real coffee, I mean. Not a blind date, just two people who understand each other. Daniel felt something loosen in his chest. I'd like that. I don't expect anything, Lily added quickly. I'm not looking for someone to rescue me or play father to this baby. I liked talking to you. Before everything else happened, I liked talking to you too. Even though I'm 7 months pregnant and have enough family drama to fill a therapy session, even though, Daniel confirmed. Though for what it's worth, I have Emma and my mother and a divorce and 17 failed blind dates. We're about even on the baggage. Lily smiled. Actually smiled. It transformed her face. "Can I have your number?" Daniel asked. She recited it, and he put it into his phone. Then he called her so she'd have his. "I should go," Lily said, but she didn't move toward her car. "Me too." They stood there for another moment, neither wanting to be the first to leave. "Daniel?" Lily said. "Yeah?" "In there, when you put your hand on my stomach. Did you feel the baby kick?" "I did. That was real. That part wasn't a lie." "I know." Daniel drove home in a daze, hands shaking on the steering wheel. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving behind trembling awareness of what he'd just done. He'd stood in a coffee shop and lied. He'd claimed a pregnant woman he'd just met was his wife, and he didn't regret it. He picked up Emma from his mother's house. Patricia asked questions. He deflected, gathered Emma's bag, and drove home. Emma chattered in the back seat about baking cookies with Grandma. Daniel made appropriate sounds without really listening. That night, after Emma was asleep, he sat in his living room with his phone in his hand. He thought about the look on Lily's face when he'd called her his wife. The way her body had stiffened, then relaxed, like she'd finally been given permission to breathe. He thought about those two women and their casual cruelty. About how many times Lily must have endured similar comments. About how exhausting it must be to defend your existence every single day. He thought about Emma, asleep upstairs, and what he would do if someday she needed someone to stand up for her and no one did. His phone buzzed. "I made it home. Thank you again for today." "For all of it." Daniel stared at the message, then typed back. "You're welcome. I meant what I said. About getting coffee again. I'd like that. But fair warning, I'm going to be very pregnant and very uncomfortable for the next 2 months. That's okay. I have a 5-year-old who doesn't understand personal space. We're even. Deal." Daniel smiled in the darkness. He didn't know what would happen next. Lily wasn't looking for a relationship, and neither was he. They were both carrying too much weight. But maybe that was the point. Maybe the best connections happened between people who understood that life wasn't supposed to be perfect. That sometimes you showed up with your damage and fear, and you found someone who said, "I see you anyway." Number. Part 11. 2 weeks later. Lily texted Daniel 3 days after their coffee shop confrontation. "My mother heard what happened. She's mortified. What did you tell her? That you were kind? That we're going to see each other again?" They didn't see each other for 2 weeks. Both were busy, Lily with doctor's appointments, Daniel with work, and Emma. But they texted. Small things at first. Then longer messages. Lily talking about her fear of labor. Daniel admitting he still had anxiety about Rachel leaving. It felt safe. This slow building of understanding. No pressure. No expectations. On the 14th day, Daniel texted, "Want to get that coffee?" Lily responded, "Can we walk in the park instead? I need to move." They met at Riverside Park on Sunday afternoon. Emma was with Rachel for the weekend. Lily was waiting on a bench, wearing a yellow dress. "Hi," she said. "Hi, yourself." They started walking slowly because Lily couldn't move quickly anymore. "Do you ever wonder what people think when they see us?" Lily asked. "Probably that we're a couple expecting a baby. Does that bother you?" "No." "Does it bother you?" "A little. I don't want you to feel obligated." "I don't. I'm here because I want to be." Lily stopped walking. "My mother wants to meet you. I told her you're just a friend, but she's convinced you're going to propose and solve all her embarrassment. What do you think?" "I think you saved me from drowning 2 weeks ago. I think you're the first person in months who made me feel like a person instead of a problem. And I think I'd like to keep getting to know you." "No expectations?" Daniel asked. "No expectations. Just presence." They found a bench overlooking the duck pond. Families clustered around the water's edge, children laughing. "Can I ask you something?" Lily said. "Sure. Why did you really do it?" "The whole speech. You said you used to believe you deserved better." Past tense. Like you'd given up. Lily looked down. I guess I had. That's why. Because someone needed to remind you. That's a lot of responsibility for someone you just met. I know. But I keep thinking about Emma. About what kind of man I want her to meet someday. I realized I want to be that kind of man first. Lily's eyes were wet. You're going to make me cry again. These are better tears. They sat watching the ducks and the families passing by. I'm glad we met, Lily said. Even if it was weird. I'm glad. Me too. And in that moment, Daniel felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Not the desperate kind, but the quiet kind. The kind that whispered maybe good things could still happen to broken people. Maybe presence was enough. Maybe kindness could build something real. Maybe two people carrying their own weight could learn to walk beside each other. The call came at 2:47 a.m. It's happening. Lily's voice was tight with pain. The baby's coming. Daniel was at Memorial Hospital in 20 minutes. He found Lily in labor and delivery, room 304, wearing a hospital gown, her hair pulled back. She looked young and exhausted and terrified. You came, she said. Of course I came. Daniel stayed through the contractions, held her hand, got ice chips. At 11:23 a.m. After 8 hours of labor, Lily's daughter was born. When the nurse brought him in after delivery, Lily was holding a tiny bundle wrapped in pink. Daniel, she said softly, meet Grace. The baby was impossibly small, her face scrunched and red, one tiny fist pressed against her cheek. She's perfect, Daniel whispered. She is, isn't she? Daniel pulled up a chair. 3 months ago, I would have run from this. From you, from all the complications. And now? Now I can't think of anywhere else I'd rather be. Lily's eyes filled with tears. Daniel Moore, are you saying you like me? I'm saying I like who I am when I'm around you. Grace made a small sound. Both adults immediately focused on her. She's going to be so loved, Daniel said. She already is. Lily looked at him. By me. By whoever else decides to stick around. I'm sticking around. This isn't your responsibility. I'm not asking you to be her father or my partner. What if I want to be more than that someday? Someday is a long way away. Right now, I have a newborn and a family with opinions. I can't think about someday. That's fair. But if someday comes, and you're still around, I wouldn't say no to the possibility. The possibility, Daniel repeated. Grace opened her eyes dark blue, unfocused. She looked at Daniel, or through him. Hello, Grace, he said softly. Welcome to the world. It's complicated and messy and sometimes hard, but there are good people in it. People like your mom. Lily wiped her eyes. That was perfect. They sat together as afternoon faded to evening. Nurses came and went. Grace slept and woke and slept again. Daniel stayed, not because he had to, but because presence was sometimes the most important thing you could offer. He didn't know what would happen next, if he and Lily would become something more, if he would be part of Grace's life, but for now, it was enough to sit beside a brave woman and her newborn daughter and feel the quiet certainty that he was exactly where he needed to be. Sometimes, good things started not with certainty or plans or perfect circumstances, but with presence, with kindness, with showing up and saying, I see you, you matter, I'm not going anywhere.